Hello, everyone, and welcome to podcast number 6 of The Real Estate Show. I'm Cherise Selley, and with me is Judy Steenland.
Hey, Cherise.
Hey, and it never seems like we have enough time when we're doing these. We can talk forever.
This goes by super fast.
It's so much fun to do it with you, though.
Well, thanks. I'm having a great time, too.
I love sharing our war stories as we've gone through this in the last podcast. And you know, it just leads me to the question that everybody's asking. Every seller and every buyer seems to be asking this: when will the low inventory change? Isn't that a big question?
Every time. I mean, we want to know too. I mean, in our jobs, we study this information and we try to stay up to date on all the data that's out there so we can guide our clients. But we're asking a lot of the same questions.
We are. And there was a really good article written April the 15th in the Wall Street Journal that talks about that the housing market has nearly 4 million homes short nationally of buyer demand. And it's especially hurting first-time home buyers. We know that. And really, this relates to new construction because new construction, it's been subdued since the recession, since that 07, 09 timeframe when a lot of the builders did go out of business. The article was talking about, although builders have increased activity in the past year, they are hampered by the shortage of labor, materials, and I mean, we can drive around Colorado Springs. Where is the land?
Right.
So they're hampered by finding land. So the shortage it's something that didn't happen. Like, even though we're kind of seeing it suddenly as far as low inventory on the MLS, it's actually been something that's been building up for years.
Yeah. Because
this started as far as new construction being held back during the recession. I will never forget a very prominent builder here during the recession when I went to go submit my earnest money check to their model home, and the model was closed, and the agent was like literally packing his car and about to leave. He's like, I can't take that. And so I remember those days, but boy, wouldn't that builder do anything in the world to be back now?
Right. Well, and even as we're, showing resale homes and we're, moving buyers and clients over to the option of new construction when they hadn't necessarily thought about it, there's some challenges there because there's, 100 people on the waiting list now.
Yes, there really is. And let's talk about some other things that are impacting low inventory right now. There's a moratorium that's been put on foreclosures since this pandemic. Right. And Judy, you've been studying up on this too. Share a little bit about what you've heard about it.
Well, as of this morning, I cross-checked 3 different resources, and we're at about 2.7 million homes in forbearance right now. And for those that don't know what forbearance is, that means that if they were unable to make their payments, they were able to push those payments out without the bank starting the foreclosure process, essentially. And this applies to landlords also. So if anyone owns investment properties and the renters aren't able to pay rent, they cannot start any kind of eviction processes.
Right.
So there's a bit of inventory, 2.7 million homes that are tied up in that market as well.
It's pent up.
But
guys, is this happening in Colorado Springs as far as one of the top areas that this is predicted to be unleashed upon when when these foreclosures do come on the market? Because everybody's thinking, oh, the market's going to drop and we're going to pick up a foreclosure in a year or two. So, I mean, I'm not reading that at all.
I'm not reading that at all either. And I think that the information, when somebody says to us, I'm going to hold off, I'm going to wait, and I'm going to pick up one of those houses at a discounted price. Well, we're seeing prices of homes continue to go up, which is expected based on the numbers and the
supply
reports.
And demand.
Right. So the next 4 years. And the difference is, and I think we talked about this in one of our earlier episodes, is that those homes that are coming on the market, just because they've been in forbearance, don't mean that they're going to be at discounted prices. It just means that they're going to be available to purchase. People have more equity in their homes. Loan requirements have been very different since 2009. And so they may sell those homes, but there's no we're not talking about discounted homes.
They may not just be doing a traditional foreclosure sale.
Right.
They can actually, these people that are in forbearance most likely will be able to put their home on the market and have equity and make money on that sale, the majority of people. But just so people understand the effects of COVID, I'm very interested in this based on the National Association of Realtors and an article that they put up that the percentage of homeowners who are seriously behind on their mortgage payments or in foreclosure was 245% higher in February than a year ago. So that has happened through COVID, but let's talk about the places, the states with the highest foreclosure rates are Delaware, Illinois, Florida, Indiana, and Ohio. So we're not on that list. Colorado isn't on that list. And so, I mean, even with that said, I still think that because most states historically right now are having low inventory, there still is equity in a lot of these houses when they do come up. So the point is this, people, don't think that we're going to have some huge foreclosure market just months away.
Right. It's not like the crash that we saw back in 2009 and 2010.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it. And there's a part of me bracing for that because you and I both have ridden that out before, and we know how fast things can change.
Right.
But there's a different law of economics happening and a supply and demand thing happening. And as you mentioned, different lending things happening now that are going to, in a way, change what this next market will look like. So for all foreseeable future, if people are wanting to invest in real estate, this is still a good time to do it.
Right.
I think that's the point.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I mean, I think that's really that we did talk about LLCs and pension funds buying properties. So that's the other thing creating this low inventory cycle.
Right, because they are coming in paying cash, or you've got conventional buyers. And we talked a little bit about that and why it's important. And for the listeners who don't understand what that means, so there's in order, cash offers, conventional offers, FHA and VA offers, which are both backed by the government. So the stipulations are higher and requirements for the property are more stringent. So therefore, a cash and a conventional offer are more appealing to a seller
than government loans.
That's right.
And it's sad because we have such an incredible military community in this city.
Yes.
And we're finding that so many of them are not able to get the awarding bid because of the fact that they may not have the down payment or they may not have any money to bring for the appraisal gap. So it's important. The conventional buyers right now are at about 45% of the market in Colorado Springs in the buyer pool, and cash is about 17%, as we talked about in the last podcast. But I think there's some interesting things about the pandemic besides the foreclosure forbearance that we talked about. There are some things that I think are here to stay, Judy, with housing and how people are affected by housing. Have you noticed just in your daily life and the buyers and the sellers that you're talking to, what do you see as permanent change?
Well, one of the biggest things I'm hearing is there's more value put on the home that's chosen because there's so much time being spent there.
Yes.
Just the way that people are living in their homes and just some of the basic day-to-day requirements. I mean, we've talked about it. A home office is a huge deal. So many people are working from home. But really just the value that they place on their home in general.
So much so. And I find that now people are moving here because they can. Not even if their job is somewhere else, they're still able to work remotely. Yeah. And that's happening. That's been like, if anything interesting has happened through this COVID time, it's that people live where they want to live now.
Right.
They're not everybody, but more and more people are free to work, and be based wherever their work is, but they can be mobile and have
Right.
mobility through
and
that.
Their companies are allowing for that because they made it through that initial lockdown and employees working remotely, and it's working well for them in general. And so, with Colorado Springs and Colorado in general, so many people love our state because there's so much fresh air, sunshine, and outdoor activity that draws people in.
It really does. And there's one other thing to talk about with this market that I think is completely different through this COVID time. And that change is multi-generational housing. And so I found this NAR statistic that I thought was so interesting, that 16% of the buyer population wants a multi-generational home now than before COVID. So you've got it was about 11% before COVID. So you have this increasing demand for multi-generational. So not only is home important, it is important for many reasons and many layers of multi-generational families that are living together now.
Well, and it makes sense that a lot of our builders have tweaked their floor plans to accommodate for that. Not so much, the older homes where that wasn't such a huge demand, but our homes in general here in Colorado Springs are conducive to that because we have a lot of ranch walkouts and separate levels of living. And so Colorado Springs is a great place to live if you're looking for a multi-generational home.
It sure is. And we've seen some really good ones. And you're very connected to a builder that has some of the best plans.
Oh, yes. We've seen some fantastic ones.
Yes.
Yeah. Almost to the point where if you had a guest, they might not ever want to leave. So it might be a little too comfortable.
Well, we need to talk about this too, because the median price of homes in Colorado Springs right now as of March, is $410,000. And it's up 16% from last year. So the prices are going up. We anticipate they will continue to go up. And you talked in the last podcast about the luxury buyer that lost out on their offer. And I was just fascinated to kind of look through the luxury market stats between $1 and $2 million in light of that. And I'm just so fascinated that in Colorado Springs, in the last 60 days, there were 38 sales. And most of those homes are selling at 99% of list price. But the highest differential in that $1 to $2 million range was at 7% over list price.
That was probably the one that went 100,000 over. Yeah.
Yeah. See? So, meaning like a 1.3 would sell for 1.4, average of 58 days on the market total. Well, I remember the days where we had like 13 years of supply in this price range, in the $1 million. It was like if you got a $1 million listing call, it was like, this might be a retirement listing. It might be forever. Now it's like, okay, let's talk about the next 30 to 60 days. Do you have a plan? Because your home is going to sell.
Yeah. Well, and you just had that come up this week. You went out on a luxury home and you're pricing it for the market. And so even talk about that.
Oh my gosh, it was so crazy because in that neighborhood, the comps that were 6 months old were like in the 1.1s, right? But the current actives nothing is actually active in that neighborhood. The under contract and pendings right now are in the 1.3s. So it's like dynamic pricing is so important.
Right. We can't price them like we used to in a traditional market.
No.
And so understanding that, and again, choosing the right agent who knows how to price strategically and within market guidelines, I say guidelines, but expectations.
Yes.
Is so important.
That's right. So thank you guys. And please know that we're here to be an asset and to be a guide in your life. If you're looking for real estate help, if you are looking for agents who are here to really assist you, but to understand your story and to help you navigate through these times. That's what we are here to do. And if you're just wanting to learn more about the real estate market, we're so glad that you're tuning in too, because we want to share the wisdom, the education, and we want to keep you aware of the market. So we'll catch you next time, and thank you so much for joining our show.